Hi everyone, how is everyone getting on? I'm just going to wait for Kat to join us. We're going to be chatting about back when Kat and I used to work together in Fitter, Faster, Stronger gyms and her experience of working with me through Go with the Flow coaching and kind of how she found that whole experience and kind of what impact it had on her training and her performance as well. So yeah, it'd be great. She's going to jump on now, hopefully in a second or two, and then we'll get cracking on that. But for those who don't know Kat, she is an Irish rugby player. She's also an excellent physio, so she's number 9. She's also just a very cool cat. Pardon the pun, but she's great also. So she's going to come on and we're going to talk about here she is, her experience. Hello, hopefully she can hear me. Maybe not. Yes, hello.
Thanks, Sinead. How are you?
I'm good. I am very red-faced and still pretty warm from my coach's session with the gym there, so apologies for my slightly red-cheeked demeanour.
Amazing. I miss those coaching sessions. They are
I know.
the best workout you'll ever do.
We had Kieran coaching us, so doing some crazy ladders. So I'm and of course me being me, I was like, I will get back down to 0. I didn't.
Oh my God. Too stubborn for your own good, Sinead.
I know. How are you getting on?
Good. Yeah. Nice week off work. So I'm chilling this week, trying to catch up with PhD stuff, and
Yeah, fantastic.
yeah, enjoying the lovely Fermanagh.
Nice. And so for those who may not know you as well as I know you, do you want to introduce yourself, kind of say a little bit about what you do, rugby, physio, what you're studying? The topic that you're researching is fascinating, so I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about that as well.
Perfect. Please prompt me if I forget anything. So yeah, I am Kathryn. I'm a physio. I qualified in 2019 from Trinity College, Dublin, and I play rugby. I play with Ulster, Old Belvedere, and Ireland. And I started off working in FFS with Eric Cullinan in my first job, and alongside Sinead and Jimmy Martin Grace and Ruds and Rory, all the rest of the lads. And then I got offered a grant to do a PhD with Irish Research Council, studying the tackle in women's rugby in terms of safety and performance outcomes. So
Amazing.
I'll hopefully be making the game safer for women. And yeah, really looking forward to that research. Sorry, my dog is just...
I was wondering, what's going on?
And I've got bright red. But
it's okay, we're the same now.
It links in with your work as well, Sinead. So yeah.
Yeah, no, there's loads of... No, that's fantastic. Like, again, as always, kind of selling yourself short, you're an excellent physio. You definitely kind of helped look after all of my various injuries. And we're a very willing, I guess, someone who was willing to nerd out on me of female research. So whenever I'd find a research paper, I'd be sending it on your way, and we'd be kind of like dissecting it and trying to go through it all. So it was great to have someone else, I guess, in the work environment for me anyway, who I could kind of bounce things off and kind of discuss a little bit more. So I loved that. So it was great for me to have that there.
Yeah, super. No, I'm a massive research nerd as well, and always keen to. I think we're both advocates for female representation in sports medicine and sports science stuff. So I think we're always keen to show off any new research that we got our hands on. So
yeah. And do you want to quickly talk a little bit more about the research if you can? Kind of I know you're talking about the tackle safety, but kind of how long are you kind of planning to look into that, and what sort of factors are you looking at? Or
so it's a 4-year PhD, and I'm planning on looking at the tackle, looking to characterize the tackle in women's rugby from a safety standpoint and a performance standpoint. So so far there's been plenty of research done in the men's game, but I think it's false to assume that we tackle in the exact same way as the men. And like with other physiological research out there, biomechanical research, looking at, there's, women have a 1.5 times more likely chance to sustain ACL injuries, and they're at higher risk of sustaining concussions. So it would be false to assume that we tackle in the same way. So I think it's really important that we have a look at the tackle within female rugby, and hopefully that'll give us the context to implement strategies that will make it safer for women and will help us perform better.
Yeah, 100%. No, it's class. It's really interesting, and like the concussion stuff is fascinating as well. And there's kind of a couple of papers out there. I can't remember who shared it. Someone, I think it might have been the Women Who Fight.co.uk on Instagram. They might have shared someone else who was like kind of looking at a paper that was looking at concussions across the menstrual cycle and everything, which was really interesting. So it's definitely a cool area. And as you said, like ACL is, it's kind of a huge area as well with regards to biomechanics, but then also estrogen and whether that plays a role, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and then we were working together as well, which is obviously an honor, as not only as kind of your friend, but also as kind of a colleague and then as a professional as well. So do you kind of want to talk about like how, I know obviously you knew me personally, but kind of how you came across the kind of work that I was doing, I guess, with trying to kind of marry nutrition and training and kind of menstrual cycle awareness all into one?
I suppose I had a vague kind of knowledge or awareness of the hormonal fluctuations that happen to females throughout their menstrual cycle, and how that might have or contribute to the changes in a woman's injury risk and performance. But I really didn't have a clue, and I'd heard of people like Stacey Sims before, but I couldn't put it in context, and I didn't understand enough about it. So when I met you, Sinead, it was kind of crystal clear how important it was, and you really put it in context, and it was really, really cool to see somebody living it in action and actually following the principles and the ideas of it. So I was totally clueless at the start. You'd probably testify to that, Sinead, but I'm very willing to try anything, and I think you were probably a little bit shocked at us physios don't always practice what we preach at times, and we're not really good at looking after ourselves, so you could definitely testify to that as well.
No, I just remember when I put on the workshops things, and I think put on one for the coaches first, and then I did two for members, and I remember you just kept joining all of them, and I was like, Kat, it's pretty much going to be the same thing again. You're like, yeah, that's totally fine. I was like, okay. And then I think after the last one, then that was when kind of we were like, okay, well, why don't we actually work together? Because you're like, I think there's stuff on that, and I've kind of been like testing out different ways of working on a one-to-one basis, not just on the workshop. So then you were my kind of willing guinea pig to kind of fine tune that. Still the same system that I used to. Pretty much there's one small tweak, but it's pretty much the same one. But yeah, so we kind of, I think from memory, we were looking at things like firstly just tracking your cycle, and I know you were kind of on a contraceptive cycle rather than the kind of natural menstrual cycle. But again, just for anyone who's listening, it's as important to track and see if there's any kind of patterns for you based on the form of contraception that you're on. So we're kind of looking at that, and then like adding in protein, vegetables, like all the kind of just fueling yourself, really, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And you think that like because you're on the pill and you should be kind of tracking where you're at with your cycle. I hadn't a clue. I wasn't looking at it at all. I was all over the place with my contraceptive pill, and I think you give me the insight into, oh, these are the different phases. And I know I was probably a dose, like jumping in on those information sessions with you the whole time.
No, I loved it.
what I've discovered is, I don't know, it's probably applicable to male athletes as well, but female athletes really have to understand why am I doing this? Like, why is this important? And I just had to understand why, why would this have an impact on me, and why does my cycle, make me perform better on certain weekends and perform crap others, and it was a real breath of fresh air to realize, oh, it's okay to be feeling rubbish, and it's okay that you can't lift as heavy as you did 2 days ago, or vice versa, and it's okay to peak and then drop off a cliff the following week. So it was really, really nice for you to put that in context and explain it all to me.
I'm grateful. Like, it was something that I would have experienced myself, where you do just get frustrated, where you're like, but why? I don't understand. I'm sleeping well, I'm doing all these things and everything. But sometimes it can just have an impact. So kind of giving yourself almost that permission to be like, all right, I'm going to focus on maybe working on technique, or I'm going to focus on my running technique, or I'm going to kind of focus on recovery, and then I'll kind of rest up and kind of come back stronger for next week. Or if I know I've got something big coming up, or I'm going to have a really crazy busy week and training, because you were like doing camps, doing your Belvo training, doing your Irish training, and working like full time as a physio on your feet. So like that was one of the things that we really looked at, was just like pure calorie intake, where it was just not eating enough, and then also not eating kind of the kind of foods to help support your recovery, which seems really simple, but it's actually really hard to do unless you take that step back and look at it. So I think from memory, Annie, that was kind of the one of the big ones that we kind of looked at, like for you, is making sure you had food prepped. Again, just all those really simple things, but are actually quite hard to implement once if you're out of the habit of doing it. But making fuel for your training, BCAAs for any of those kind of longer sessions, like having something in the car ready to go
Yeah.
for, or at least at home, so you could kind of grab something quick then to kind of tide you over until you're having your dinner post training, and
Oh
breakfast
yeah.
ready. Remember those super shakes?
Oh my gosh, I know, and I kind of realized when I look back at myself now, it was such a challenge for me. I don't know what sort of place I was in, but I suppose I started my first year of work. I had I was doing research at the time, and I was starting to branch into my PhD, and I was training with my club, training with Ulster, training with Ireland, and I was just in a place where I was totally overwhelmed, and somebody telling me to start eating well and start tracking these things, it was probably a wee bit too much, but
Mm,
you were excellent in breaking it down to, okay, let's focus on one thing each month, and
yeah,
let's not throw the kitchen sink at it, because that approach wouldn't have worked for me at that stage. But
yeah,
yeah, you were really patient with me, and it actually, you focused on it making these small habits make a big
mm.
difference, and that worked wonders for me. And I'm still drinking the super shakes. I'm still
I was gonna ask.
packing my protein. I'm still packing my BCAs for before training and stuff, like
Yeah,
and that was all you, Sinead.
I'm so glad. Probably doing better than I am at the minute.
Oh, it
um,
was a long process though at the start. I don't know whether
yeah,
I
it
was
was
just
good.
a particularly difficult client, but it took me probably a good, what, 6 to 10 months to.
I think well, we were working definitely focused for about 4 or 5 months, I think, and then kind of a couple of months, and that was kind of when you're transitioning it. So I was just kind of out of the gym, so I think I was just kind of texting you, doing check-ins then, rather than the kind of more formal habit tracker that we had. But no, I think that's one thing that people forget a lot of time, is they think it's going to be really fast changes, but it's all about slow and steady, and just kind of picking the either the most important things, or what they call like the low hanging fruits, like what's easy for you to do and what can you just quickly implement without it really being too much of a change to your routine. And those things really just do go a long way. And it is that whole like preparation beats willpower. But once you're in the habit of it, and once you do it in a small, sustainable way, it's actually not that overwhelming as kind of you were talking about. So I'm glad you found that experience
Yes.
good
Yeah.
and beneficial and well paced.
Oh, absolutely. The benefits were huge. I am now stronger than I've ever been, and fitter than ever before as well. I mean, energy wise, I probably still struggle just between work and the PhD and rugby, but
Mm,
that'll always be a thing probably until I retire. But yeah, in terms of being at my strongest and at my best for performance, I'm miles above where I thought my ceiling was. So
yeah.
I think
Yay.
that's made a massive difference for me, Sinead.
Yeah, fab. And I'm so glad. Like it's great to get that sort of feedback, and even just like hear you talking about it as well. It's just for you, but also kind of knowing that those small changes did make such a difference to kind of your performance and how you're feeling as well, which is so important. Like the how you feel as an athlete or as an individual is as important as well as kind of how you're performing. And
Yes.
so no, I'm excited. And like, did you, in the talks that I would have done, we kind of would have mentioned kind of training and adapting training to your cycle or your contraceptive cycle. Is there anything that you kind of carried over from that, or kind of applying to your own training at the minute?
Big time, yeah. With my training in Ireland, we kind of monitor how we're feeling each day, and we kind of give a rating of how well we slept, what our stress levels are,
Mm,
where we are in our menstrual cycle, and
super.
kind of just rating our symptoms. And if we do have a day where we're feeling crap, we've got loads of cramps, or we're particularly sore, you note that down. And then Orla, our S&C coach at Ireland, she's amazing. She's really keen to apply the science of the menstrual cycle to
Yeah.
our training, and I think it has been working really well for her. I noticed sometimes some weekends in camp where we performed particularly bad or everybody was a bit cranky, she actually said, yeah, well, these are all on stage. I can't even remember what stage it was. You know better than me, but
Yes, probably
we were
stage
all on,
4.
yeah, we were
Yeah.
all in the horrors. So and I suppose it gives her an idea of, you know, where this person is at, and she actually adjusted the sets and reps and the programming a little bit to reflect that. And particularly if there was girls with maybe knee injuries or ligament injuries and things like that, like she was on top of it to make sure if they're in that particularly vulnerable stage of their cycle, you know, do your extra activation, do your extra stability work, just to make sure you're on top of your game.
Yeah, no, she's class.
Yeah, and I know that information came from you as well. You were working with
yeah. I was gonna be like, yeah, she's great. We worked together, but no, she's fab. But like, remember she got in contact. I think it was through you actually. Did you put it into the group or something? I can't remember. Yeah. So she came, but like, I was so impressed with firstly how much she knew already, and then kind of her willingness to apply it and stuff. And then I remember when we were linking in the sessions, I was like, oh my god, it's so great to see that it's being applied. But in fairness to her, you guys were already doing so much with managing your overall load and getting recovery days, and you know, yeah, her kind of approach was excellent. But it's great to hear that like it is kind of being applied. And I guess like for me as well, I would kind of worked with some of the clubs as well. They I guess feed into the Irish team as well. So kind of trying to educate everyone, because it is hard when you kind of learn it first. You're just like, whoa, it's so overwhelming. And even I would have been on a conference there on Thursday, and that was one of the things for loads of the S&C coaches are kind of being like, okay, this is great, but how do I actually put it into practice? So it really is just by kind of keeping it simple and just almost trying to treat it as like, you know, how did you sleep, or, you know, how is your recovery overall? It's kind of trying to fit it within that context and looking at what you can control outside of your menstrual cycle, like your sleep, your nutrition, your recovery. Like, are you getting enough protein? Are you eating enough anti-inflammatory foods and vegetables and stuff like that? Again, just to kind of, and then just knowing as well. I think the kind of knowing or having kind of an explanation for things really
and it's not
helps. I
just
know it did for me.
being a crazy female.
Yeah, exactly. Or being like, what's wrong with me? I'm not as good as I was. And you're like, no, it's just where I am, or kind of how I'm feeling. I haven't actually recovered properly because I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't prep enough for, you know, needing more protein or kind of whatever it may be. But no, I'm so glad that you had such a good experience. So I always wanted to kind of get you on to talk about it, because I just think it's good for people to hear how to put it into effect practically, and then also like what that process looks like, you know what I mean, from a habit point of view. Because some people, when you join, especially, I've got the kind of, it's called the Feel Good Fundamentals, which is like an online program now, and it's more kind of like the earlier stage what we were working on, so more about kind of like building up the basics, like that bottom of the pyramid I talked about. And you do kind of get questions being like, yeah, why are we working on like having breakfast and drinking water? I'm like, because this is all the foundation of you having healthy and strong hormones and kind of being kind of recovering and making sure you're kind of performing at your best. Like, there's no point in starting to add in BCAAs if you're just not eating protein throughout your meals, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, it's gonna help a little bit, but you're not really going to get the main benefit out of it. So no,
Yeah,
so
and you have a first-hand knowledge and understanding of what it's like to be that kind of elite athlete, and you know, with big strength and conditioning goals. Like, you know what it feels like when you're banging your head against a wall thinking,
yeah,
I was here last week and now I'm feeling crap and I don't want to train and I have no motivation. So
yeah,
that context really helps for me anyway as an athlete, because at the time I was thinking,
fab.
oh, you know, she's telling me to do this, but I don't think it's going to make a big difference. And you know, I had to be really patient, and you'd think I'd know better as a physio, but I have no patience
I know.
whatsoever. And having you there to just keep reminding me and reassuring me that, like, trusting it, do one thing at a time, just made a massive difference. And those little changes became habits, and I stuck by them. And
Oh, I'm so glad.
if anyone else is doing the process and they have the same thing as me, as being a little impatient, you know, just trust Sinead and
Yeah.
stick at it.
Oh, I'm glad. And then I guess to kind of, for the parting final words, like, I'm slightly catching the spot here because I didn't give you the heads up I was going to ask this, but if you had kind of 3 things that you would kind of recommend to people, I know you can have a little minute, but what do you think that would be? Obviously, this is very generic advice, but if you kind of did have 3 things to takeaways from it, what do you think they'd be for people, or pieces of advice?
I would say, even if you think that you're not an athlete, or you're not, cut out to do this, to make these sort of changes, or to get someone like Sinead on board, to help to work with your flow and get your training aligned with it. It's totally worth it for every other element of your life, like your relationships, your mental well-being, everything else will really benefit fully from doing that. And it does make you more aware of yourself and your body, and it does kind of make you appreciate yourself a little bit more, and stop beating yourself up sometimes when you are feeling crap and feeling demotivated.
Yeah.
What else would I say? I would say be patient. Trust it. Try and do one thing at a time. Don't try and throw the kitchen sink at yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like anything. These little steps, it takes time to see massive differences. But that would be another one. And Sinead is brilliant, and just listen.
I swear I didn't tell her to say this.
I've never seen information materials or presentations like it anywhere at all. So it's so user friendly, and yeah, you don't have to be a scientist, or you don't have to have went to college to study physiology to understand the menstrual cycle. And Sinead is an expert in the area, so go for her.
Thanks very much. I'm like, oh, just have a little tear. Oh no, thanks.
Compared to where I was at the start, Sinead.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's always baby steps. She's always the same when I started, but no, I think like working with you was great to see, because it was just such a great process to kind of take it steady and take it slowly and kind of work on those things like fueling yourself, making sure you're getting your protein, like, what's your recovery like, and adjusting where possible to your cycle. It's not always going to be possible, but if you can try it and kind of see it, and everything's just an experiment, you know what I mean? If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Try something different. But no, you're as always an absolute pleasure to work with. And then, obviously we're mates as well, which helps. But it was lovely to work with you in a professional context as well. But no, I really appreciate you coming on as well, because I do know that it was your study week this week, so you're very generous to give up your time and come on to speak with me on a Friday afternoon. So yeah, thanks so much. I'll be kind of adding a synopsis of this underneath the little chat. I'll be posting up on my stories. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on, and sure, I'll be chatting to you over the weekend anyway.
Lovely to keep in touch, Sinead, and have a lovely weekend.
Yeah, you too, babe. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks everyone. Bye.